When Marcus walked into Officer Randall's office, he hadn't even had a chance to sit down before hearing, "People like you don't belong here." But that was just the beginning. A few minutes, a string of insults, and a disgusting spit to the face later. And Randall had no clue he had just spat on his new boss. Now Marcus was ready to turn this precinct upside down, and Randall? Well, he was about to find out what it's like when justice breathes down your neck. It was just another morning in Clairville, a town so uneventful it could make watching paint dry seem like a sport. The streets were empty, the air was still, and the local police precinct? Business as usual. Or so they thought. Marcus Williams walked into the station like any regular guy. No flashy suit, no grand entrance, just a plain shirt, worn jeans, and a weathered backpack. He looked like someone with nothing to prove. But the truth? He was the newly appointed chief of police. He had a mission: to see how this precinct, with its notorious reputation for discrimination and misconduct, really operated when no one thought they were being watched. The precinct itself was a mess. Desks were buried under papers. Officers moved around with all the urgency of molasses. And the whole place reeked of burnt coffee and stale ambition. Marcus approached the front desk where a clerk barely glanced up from his crossword puzzle. "Can I speak to Officer Randall?" Marcus asked, his voice steady. The clerk gave him a look that screamed asterisk, another one of those complaints. He pressed a button and mumbled, "Randall, you're up." A few moments later, Officer David Randall appeared. He was 45, broad-shouldered, and oozing arrogance. His eyes swept over Marcus like he was trying to decide if this was worth his time. With a flick of his hand, he motioned Marcus to follow him into his office. The office was a disaster zone. Coffee-stained papers, overflowing trash, and a chair that looked like it had given up on life. Randall slouched into his seat and looked at Marcus like he was an annoying fly. "All right, what's your problem?" Randall said, not even pretending to care. "I was assaulted," Marcus replied calmly. "Two men jumped me on 5th Street. I want to file a report." Randall leaned back, smirking. "5th Street? What were you doing there, handing out bad decisions for free?" Marcus ignored the jab. "Just walking home." "Can we focus on the report?" Randall chuckled, a low, condescending sound. He grabbed a form and started writing lazily. After a few moments, he stopped and looked Marcus dead in the eye. "Look," he said, smirking again. "Not every case is worth the paper it's written on, especially not when it comes to people like you." Marcus's face stayed neutral, but his silence spoke volumes. Randall, clearly enjoying himself, leaned back in his chair. "Your kind always wants someone to clean up their messes," Randall said, his tone dripping with mock sympathy. Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "Finish the report." Randall rolled his eyes. "Yeah, I don't think so." He picked up the form, ripped it in half, and let the pieces fall to his desk like confetti. "See? Problem solved." Marcus didn't move. "What you're doing is illegal." Randall leaned forward, his grin widening. "Illegal, buddy, around here I decide what's legal." And then he did it. The unthinkable. Randall spat. A wet, disgusting glob landed right on Marcus's cheek. The room went silent. Marcus didn't flinch. He calmly pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, wiped his face, and looked Randall straight in the eye. The door opened. "Marcus, there you are," said a cheerful voice. Both men turned to see Robert Miller, the outgoing police chief, walking in with a broad smile. "Welcome aboard, Chief Williams," Miller said, extending a hand. Randall froze. The smirk vanished from his face, replaced by a look of sheer panic. The silence in the room was deafening. Randall sat frozen, his brain clearly struggling to process what had just happened. One moment he was on his high horse, and the next, he realized he'd spat on the asterisk new police chief asterisk. His face turned a shade of pale that was almost comical. Almost. Marcus, on the other hand, was calm as a Sunday morning. He shook Miller's hand firmly, his composure intact despite the chaos that had unfolded moments earlier. "Thank you, Robert," Marcus said, his voice even. "It's good to finally meet the team." Miller beamed. "You're going to love it here. Solid group of officers. Hardworking? Dedicated." Marcus's gaze shifted to Randall, who looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. "I'm sure I'll learn a lot," Marcus said, the hint of steel in his voice subtle but undeniable. Miller, oblivious to the tension, clapped Randall on the shoulder. "Looks like you've already met Officer Randall. He's been with us for years, a real cornerstone of the team." Marcus's lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes stayed cold. "Yes, we've had an enlightening conversation." Randall finally found his voice, though it came out shaky. "Chief, look, this is all a misunderstanding. I didn't know." Marcus raised a hand, silencing him. "Officer Randall, there's nothing to misunderstand. Your actions spoke loud and clear." Miller's cheerful expression faltered. "Wait, what's going on here?" Marcus turned to him. "Robert, I think we'll need to discuss this later. For now, I'd like to handle this directly." Miller hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Of course. Let me know if you need anything." With that, he exited the room, leaving Marcus and Randall alone. Randall tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. "Chief, I didn't mean any disrespect. I was just having a bad day." Marcus's stare was unrelenting. A bad day doesn't justify ripping up a citizen's report, making racist remarks, or spitting in someone's face. Do you have any idea how unacceptable your behavior is? Or are you so used to this level of misconduct that you don't even notice it anymore? Randall's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He had nothing. "Effective immediately," Marcus continued, his voice ice cold. "You are suspended pending an internal investigation. Leave your badge and weapon on the desk." Randall's eyes widened. "Suspended? Chief, you can't—" "I can," Marcus interrupted. "And I have." Randall sat there stunned as Marcus leaned in closer, his voice low but cutting. "You've spent years using your badge as a shield to hide your bias and abuse. That ends now." Slowly, Randall rose from his chair, his hands trembling as he removed his badge and gun. He placed them on the desk and, without another word, walked out of the office. The door closed behind him with a heavy finality. Marcus took a deep breath, allowing himself a brief moment of reflection. This was only the beginning. He knew that Randall was likely just one piece of a much larger problem within the precinct. But if today was any indication, change was long overdue, and it was coming fast. The news of what happened spread through the precinct like wildfire. Whispers filled the hallways. Officers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what Marcus's leadership would mean for them. Some were visibly rattled, while others seemed quietly relieved, as if they'd been waiting for someone to finally shake things up. Marcus stepped out of the office and addressed the staff gathered in the main room. His voice was calm but firm, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Let me make one thing clear," he said, his eyes scanning the room. "This precinct will be a place of accountability, integrity, and respect. If you cannot uphold those values, you have no place here. Consider this your first and only warning." The room was silent. No one dared speak. Marcus turned and walked away, leaving the officers to digest his words. The message was clear: the old ways were done and a new era had begun. The next morning, the station buzzed with tension. News of Randall's suspension spread fast and the officers couldn't stop whispering. Marcus, however, wasted no time. He gathered the entire staff for a mandatory meeting. As the officers shuffled into the briefing room, their unease was palpable. Marcus stood at the front, calm and composed, but his presence was magnetic. When the room finally quieted, he spoke. "I'm Marcus Williams, your new chief of police," he began, his voice steady. "And let me make one thing clear. What I witnessed yesterday was unacceptable. That behavior isn't just a violation of department policy, it's a betrayal of what this badge stands for." The room was dead silent. Every pair of eyes was fixed on him. "This precinct will operate with accountability, integrity, and respect. If that's a problem for you, there's the door." He let the words hang in the air for a moment, scanning the room. "Officer Randall has been suspended pending a full investigation. This review isn't stopping with him. It's going to cover every unresolved complaint, every report of misconduct. If you've done your job with honor, you have nothing to worry about. But if you haven't, you'll answer for it." The weight of his words left the officers in stunned silence. Marcus walked out, leaving them to absorb the reality of the changes ahead. Within days, the investigation into Randall uncovered years of misconduct, leading to his permanent dismissal. Several other officers resigned before facing similar scrutiny, while others took Marcus's message to heart and worked to rebuild trust. Marcus introduced mandatory training, bringing in experts and community leaders to address issues of ethics and bias. Resistance was high at first, grumbling eye rolls and muttered complaints, but Marcus was unmoved. "This isn't about punishment," he told the team during one training. "It's about becoming the officers this community deserves." Over time, the changes began to stick. Complaints from residents dropped, and trust in the department slowly rebuilt itself. Officers started taking pride in their work again, and the precinct's reputation transformed. Randall's downfall didn't go unnoticed. The media picked up the story, hailing Marcus as a bold reformer. His decisive actions became a beacon of hope for a community that had long felt ignored. A year later, the Clairville Police Department was unrecognizable. Crime rates were down, community engagement was up, and the precinct earned recognition as a model for reform. Marcus had taken a broken system and rebuilt it with honesty and grit. One night, as Marcus walked through the station, he felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The work wasn't done. There was always more to do, but for the first time it felt like real progress. Because for Marcus, justice wasn't just a word, it was a commitment, and he honored it every single day.